NFL offseason can make or break your franchise, and we've seen the Buffalo Bills go out and make a bunch of moves, and at this point in time, most of the top tier free agents are off the board, and most teams have shifted their focus to the upcoming NFL draft. So with that being said, this seems like the perfect time to take a look back at some of the Buffalo Bills moves so far this offseason and give them a grade for the offseason so far. So as I just mentioned, obviously the NFL draft is quickly approaching, and this grade, it's not finalized. This is like your midterm report card. You're going to get the opportunity to do better, do worse. It all depends on what we see in the NFL draft, but let's recap so far what we've seen from the Buffalo Bills at this point in time so far this offseason. I think it's best that we start off by looking at the departing players from the Bills, and it is a long list of players, headlined by Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Tre'Davious White, Dane Jackson, Siran Neal. Those players are all leaving that secondary. Obviously, Micah Hyde, he's still sold that it's a possibility that he returns, but it seems highly unlikely after he's someone who's suffered plenty of neck injuries over the last few seasons. Jordan Poyer, that's a dynamic duo, those two. His partner in crime. These guys, they were one of the best safety tandems in the National Football League for years. Poyer, unfortunately, gone to the Miami Dolphins. Come on, man, really? The Miami Dolphins? You just had to do that, didn't you? Tre'Davious White, he's someone who he can play at an elite level, but we haven't seen it in quite some time because he's suffered multiple season-ending injuries, first with that ACL, then with the Achilles injury. It's just unfortunate. It's been an unfortunate way for him to end his career in Buffalo. He's still available on the free agent market, but it's looking like he's going to sign somewhere with a West Coast team. You also have Gabe Davis and Mitch Morse, who both departed, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then after those guys, it's really just a bunch of depth pieces that are really replaceable for this team. However, the Bills did manage to keep some of their homegrown talent, re-signing the likes of AJ Epinesa, Daquan Jones, Ty Johnson, and Cam Lewis. They also extended the contract of Deion Dawkins and Taron Johnson. So those are some moves that can really help out this team in the long term. Obviously, Deion Dawkins, he's someone who, he's a Pro Bowl left tackle. Those aren't easy to come by. Taron Johnson, one of the best nickel corners in the National Football League. AJ Epinesa, Daquan Jones. Those are some important pieces on the defensive line, especially when you look at how Leonard Floyd's departed, and there's a lot of uncertainty about what the productivity of Von Miller will be next season. Ty Johnson, he's a depth piece at the running back position, someone who plays with a punch mouth style football. You gotta love the ground and pound ability that he brings to the team. And Cam Lewis, he's got some versatility. He can play at the cornerback position, also at the safety position. One of those homegrown guys who we haven't seen too much from him, but he can plug in when needed, and he's someone who could potentially earn a starting spot here over the next few years. And when you consider that the Bills were entering this offseason around negative $40 million in cap space, I mean, that's actually not that bad. They didn't lose out on too many significant pieces of their team. I think that's solid. Let's get into the additions that they made to the team now. And obviously the biggest splash move was the addition of Curtis Samuel to the receiving corps. Curtis Samuel, you can see his stats listed right here on the screen. 62 receptions, 613 yards, 4 touchdown receptions, along with 7 rushes for 39 yards and a rushing touchdown last season with the Washington Commanders. Those numbers, they're not amazing. They're pedestrian, honestly. But if you look at his numbers back in 2020 with the Carolina Panthers, 77 receptions, 851 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, 41 rushes for 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Those being under Joe Brady back in 2020 with the Carolina Panthers. That's something that's very promising because Samuel, he's familiar with Joe Brady and his offensive scheme. He's bringing that familiarity over to the Buffalo Bills, and I'm expecting a great year from Samuel. He's still only 27 years old on that 3-year deal, so he's someone who he's in the midst of his prime at the wide receiver position. You can line him up in the backfield, out wide, in the slot. You can do so much with him. That versatility on offense and that familiarity with Joe Brady, I think that's great. Something that you don't hear many people talking about is the fact that he's played with Cam Newton as well. And Cam Newton, we hear the comparisons quite frequently between Cam Newton and Josh Allen. Someone that's played with a big mobile quarterback. You have the ability to adjust on the fly. You got to be able to run block. You got to be able to adjust your routes. That's something that's valuable, and it's not getting talked about enough. Another addition the Bills made to their wide receiving core was the addition of Mac Hollins, who had 18 receptions for 251 yards, 0 touchdowns, but he did have 13.9 yards per reception. If there's a silver lining about his production last season, it is the fact that he made every catch he made was basically a first down based off of his yards per reception. So he's a deep threat. He's around 6'5", and that's someone that you want to have on your Bills offense. Josh Allen, he likes to sling that rock, so you give him a big deep threat target, someone who's going to bring it. I mean, there's no Gabe Davis in this offense anymore, and I'm not expecting Hollins to make up for that production, but he's someone that can fill that deep threat role, and he's someone who's likely going to be a wide receiver 4, 5, 6 on this team. It's just another depth piece, someone who's really replacing the likes of a Trent Sherfield. Another addition the Bills made to their offense was Mitch Trubisky, as they signed a backup quarterback for Josh Allen, someone who's familiar with the system, a mobile quarterback. Last season, his numbers rather underwhelming with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I mean, Mitch Trubisky, you're not asking him to do too much coming to the Buffalo Bills. He's going to be the backup quarterback to Josh Allen, so hopefully he doesn't have to do anything at all. Sitting behind a guy like Josh Allen, you're really not going to be asked to do too much. So I think this is a great spot for Mitch Trubisky to come in to a place where he's familiar. He played with the Bills back in 2021. Just come into Buffalo. It's a pretty stress-free position. You don't have to do much behind Josh Allen. And if you do, you have familiarity here. And I have more faith in Mitch Trubisky than I did Kyle Allen last year. So I think this is a win-win scenario for both Trubisky and for the Bills. And the Buffalo Bills' most recent signing was offensive lineman Will Clapp. And not only does he have one of the best names in the National Football League, but he's 28 years old. He has plenty of experience in the National Football League. He has versatility with the ability to play at the center or guard position. And he's someone who played in 75% of the Los Angeles Chargers' offensive snaps last season. So he has experience, he has versatility, and he has an amazing name. So I love this move for the Bills as well. You needed to add some offensive line pieces, especially after Mitch Morse and Ryan Bates departing the Buffalo Bills. There was a hole on the offensive line there for sure. The Bills also made some moves to their defense, and this was really important because obviously that defensive secondary is depleted. The first addition they made to their defense was the addition of Nicholas Morrow, a linebacker who played with the Philadelphia Eagles last season, and his 2023 stats, pretty impressive. 80 tackles, 3 sacks, also recorded a safety. His strength is really against the run, and in pass coverage, he's not as good. He's able to get from side to side across the field, and he was really someone who's trusted in Philadelphia. He was the signal caller of the defense, so he's a leader, and he's someone that I think that's really valuable for the Bills, especially if you look back to last season. You had A.J. Klein, Dorian Williams, Balen Spector. These are guys that were playing in the playoffs at the linebacker position just because of how depleted that second level was due to injury. No Matt Milano, no Terrell Bernard. Having that depth at that position is something that is such an important thing to have, and now you have it with Nicholas Morrow. I love the addition there. On the defensive line, the Bills added Casey Toohill from the Washington Commanders. Toohill, 27 years old, and in 2023, he played in 16 games, recorded 26 tackles with 6 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. Some okay numbers for Toohill last season. He's someone who still has room to grow, and coming into Sean McDermott's defensive scheme, I think it's going to greatly benefit him because he's not going to be obviously fed. He's not going to be thrown to the wolves. He's not going to be someone who's going to be heavily relied on. He's going to be more of a rotational piece, and obviously he still has to crack the roster. I think he will, but he's going to be more of a rotational piece, someone that can rotate with guys like Von Miller, AJ Epinesa, and potentially another draft pick at that position. I think it's a great add because up front, we know that Sean McDermott loves utilizing those rotational pieces in his defensive scheme. And perhaps the biggest move on the defense was the signing of safety Mike Edwards, the former Kansas City Chief. Therefore, you're adding by subtraction, making your opponent weaker, and bringing in one of their players. I love that idea. But Mike Edwards, he's someone who's won 2 Super Bowls. He has that experience of winning. He won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers in 2020, was on Tom Brady's team, and then he went to Patrick Mahomes' team, won with the Kansas City Chiefs in 2023. This is someone who has that winning experience. He's able to get picks. He's able to blitz a bit. He's able to play in the second level. He's able to do so many different things. And heck, he's already picked off Tua Tagovailoa. He's going to fit in Buffalo in a great way. Obviously, without Jordan Poyer and without Micah Hyde, the Bills really needed some safety help because you didn't want to rely on Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin to do that by themselves. So they go out and they get Mike Edwards, a former Kansas City Chief, a former Tampa Bay Buccaneer. I love that move myself. As I mentioned earlier, adding by subtraction, making your opponent weaker while you're getting stronger. It's a good move. It's a good move for sure. And I think that they should still probably consider drafting a safety because now you have 3 of them on the depth chart. Cam Lewis can play safety as well, but I think drafting another one would be a good idea. So right now, we've went over all of the moves that the Bills made. Drum roll, please. It's time to grade the Buffalo Bills offseason so far. And what I'm giving this team, Brandon Beane, B for Brandon Beane. Because, I mean, there's nothing really that was mind-blowing. I mean, the Curtis Samuel addition was the biggest move that they made. That was a pretty big addition to this team. But when I really look at it, a lot of people are going to say, oh, C, D. I don't think so at all. I think that's way overblown. You're not giving Brandon Beane enough credit if you give him one of those lower grades so far, because this was a team that had negative $40 million in cap space just a few weeks ago. And they went out and they managed to really made it so those losses didn't hurt this team too much. And they did a great job at bargain bin hunting. And they also made some splash moves with the additions of Mike Edwards and of Curtis Samuel. So I really like what the Bills did here. I think Brandon Beane maneuvered this situation excellently. It was a great job by Brandon Beane in the front office to go ahead and get rid of that money and find a way to bring in some talent. Also re-signing some of your homegrown talent and preparing for the NFL draft with 11 draft picks. I think there's room for growth on this team. This team's getting younger, and those 11 draft picks, I'm excited to see what Brandon Beane does with it. After the draft, I will be doing another one of these videos grading the Buffalo Bills offseason as a whole. So I want you to stay tuned for that video. If you haven't yet, click that like button. If you like this video, click subscribe. Stay tuned for more content coming your way on the Bills Bunker. And let me know in the comment section down below, how would you grade the Buffalo Bills offseason so far? What grade are you giving it? An A, B, C, D, F? Let me know. Thank you for watching. I'm Jake Varco, and this is the Bills Bunker. Go Bills.